What is going on, everybody? Welcome into Hurdlers of Adversity, conversations with inspirers and maximizers of pivotal moments. I'm your host, John Register. And before we get to anything today, it is National High Five Day. So if you're on when you get on, give each other a high five right there. Just do that because that's how we're going to start this show off today. We are really excited about the guest we have today. She brought me on her show. I'll talk a little about that later. But oh my gosh, I mean, I was just like enthralled with this person. And so I'm really excited to have a conversation with her. And we put it in all over the stuff. I'm looking up here for the feed of who's coming in on like LinkedIn, and we got YouTube going on. We have Facebook groups. So come on in the room where it happens, the room where it happens. If I'm looking over the other side over here, I'm just trying to get the comments so I can actually see the comments because you all are talking. Last week, you did a great job talking back to me. So thank you for that. So what is April 15th? We talked about High Five Day. It used to be tax day, but thank you, COVID, for giving us another month. So we got that going on. And then we are still in Amputee Limb Loss Awareness Month. And we get on this show, to have conversations with individuals who have just done it. They have lived a spectacular life. They've overcome tremendous odds, tremendous adversity, and now they're giving back to us. They're giving back to us in such a capacity to share with us their journeys and how they have come through and how they're going to continue to do it, even though we have these situations that happen in our life, and our guest is no different today. So when you're on, just please share this content. Please listen to the past shows because they're fantastic. They're great. We had a great show last week with Dr. Avis. Oh my gosh, it was wickedly awesome. We could have talked all day. We could be talking to right now today. So many of you have known me, but there's some that when you get on to this kind of quasi podcast live show, you're unfamiliar with me. So I'm going to give you a really quick synopsis of who I am and then why we have this show. So at 5:29 on May 17th, 1994, I was one of the world's fastest hurdlers. I was in the United States Army, and I was on my way to officer candidate school. At 5:30, as I was training for the Olympic Games, I misstepped a hurdle, dislocated my left knee, severed an artery behind my kneecap, and 7 days later became an amputee. So I'm one of I represent the 70% of those amputees in the military that were not injured in combat. Think about that for a moment. But through my wife, Alice, who tells me, you know what, John, we're going to get through this together. This is just our new normal. As I was struggling with my identity, picked back up. And all of a sudden, we had this new normal mindset, and we were off and running. Made the Paralympic team for swimming 27 months post my amputation. Made another Paralympic team 4 years after that, after I learned how to run on an artificial leg. Won the Paralympic silver medal in the long jump in Sydney, Australia, and then started for the United States Olympic Committee. Founded the United States Olympic Committee's Paralympic Military Sport Program, which uses sports as a tool for rehabilitation. Trained a lot of athletes how to tell their journey stories, and now we are here. That brings us up to date. So I'm so glad that each one of you are on. Make sure that you are putting in the chat box who you are and where you are from. I know that sometimes I don't see it on the LinkedIn live stream, but I know that a few of you are out there. So just don't be shy. Put that in the chat. So each guest on this show has done similarly. So I see one there now. I don't know where you're coming from, but just put in the chat. Each guest on the show has done similarly, right, in their lives. And though this platform, either StreamYard or LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube, whatever you listen to from, they are doing this. They are allowing for us to have these conversations so that we can actually shift the mindset of individuals. And I'm going to get ready to just introduce our guest because, oh my gosh, she's just rock star, amazing. And she has a podcast that calls almost the same thing, right? Just like punk rock HR. And so she is world renowned. Okay. She is a former human resource leader turned writer, entrepreneur, and speaker. CNN recognized her as one of the top 5 career advisors in the United States. USA Today, she's been featured in. She's been featured on NPR, love that station, and The New Yorker, Wall Street Journal, and Vox. She frequently delivers keynote speeches at businesses and management events around the world and hosts a popular podcast focused on fixing work. So What else could I share? But I met her for the first time when I was a guest on her podcast. I said earlier, punk rock HR. And I was just mesmerized by her. And I can see why she is an international speaker, because she just took over. Her book, Betting on You, How to Put Yourself First and Finally Take Control of Your Career, was published by Henry Holt and Company in January of 2021. So guess what she's doing? Guess what she's doing during COVID? She's writing a book. Please welcome the woman who helps executives and HR leaders prioritize the employee experience to avoid the collateral damage of a toxic work environment, and the woman who is still all over the internet, shaking her fist at clouds, Laurie Ruettimann. I want to know what that's all about. We got to get that. Welcome, first of all. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm just such an angry woman. I'm always yelling. It's real nice to be here, and it's nice to talk to a fellow Chicagoan. That's always fun. I have not lived in Chicago for a very long time, but it's always nice to reconnect with someone.
I'm still there. My mask is on the floor over here, but Chicago Bears. I don't know if you're a White Sox or a Cubbies. Cubs. Yeah. I was on the other side. I'm a Sox guy, and so we got Katie Clifford on. Worlds colliding. I'm so excited to hear the two of you today. Look at that. I am excited, Katie Clifford, that you're on. So go out there and invite your friends, because we want to hear from you and ask them questions, because we're gonna throw that out as well. I'm very excited, Laurie, that you're on. And I want to make sure I said your name right. I said Ruettimann. Is it?
You nailed it, man. I mean, it's not that hard. It's like Ruettimann, Udaman, Ruettimann. That's how I learned it. That's how I say it. So it's real nice to be here, though. And I'm excited to talk to you. You're on my podcast. It's going to go live on Monday, so the timing is perfect.
Oh, great.
I'm super pleased to continue the conversation that we had about, individual accountability and storytelling.
Yeah. When I think about storytelling, a lot of people tell themselves a lot of stories this past year. What are some of the stories that you heard from individuals that, they needed to be course corrected?
Sure. Well, before COVID, right, people were good at telling themselves stories like, my boss hates me. I'm stuck because I have student loans. I picked this career. I don't really know what else I'm going to do. And now I have a mortgage. I have kids. I support my elderly parents. And I can't do anything. Laurie, you used to work in HR. Can you look at my resume? And I'm like, no, I cannot. And then COVID happens, right? And everybody's hunkering down. They're almost sheltering in place in their jobs, because now their healthcare, especially here in America, is tied to their job, and they don't want to risk it. So a lot of stories around learned helplessness from everybody on the ability spectrum, right? I mean, people were just not going to take a risk over the past 12 months. I think that's starting to shift a little bit in certain segments of the society, but people are still scared, John, and they're mostly scared from the stories they tell themselves.
Yeah. Learned helplessness just triggered me. Dr. Martin Seligman. And optimism. We do learn those things. So if we can learn them, we can unlearn them.
Oh, super well said. I think, though, it's real easy to say it and it's harder to do it, right? Who wants to unlearn something? Because then we have to be accountable. Then we have to put ourselves out there. Then we have to be open to failing. But I have a dear friend. Her name is Amy Guth. She's a journalist, and she taught me you only have to try something once to get over your fear. You only have to stand up to your boss once. You only have to tell someone to back off once, or that you can't work late. And once you do it once, if you practice in the small moments, you have nailed it for the big moments. You will get over your fear. But John, nobody can push you to trying these things, right? It's you and you alone. There's no cavalry coming.
I'm saying, that's funny you say that, right? Because when I talk in my speeches, I'll say the jump is the jump. The jump is your jump. And there's so many books that are written on being more resilient, and there's so many books on you can do it, and all these kind of motivational speakers out there. But at the end of the day, there's only one person who can make the jump to live more courageously. And we talk about how when our truth outweighs our fear, we will commit to a courageous life. So thank you for saying that. That's beautifully well said. So I want to thank you for having me on your show. I didn't know it was coming out on Monday. This is great. I'm going
Perfect.
to tell you why, because I just I forced a person on my team. She said no to be my kind of PR person, and I said, "You can't say that." And she just got on. Look at that. The jump is a jump. She says, "Love it." That's the one. I forced her. So everybody else, that's Patrice. She is over all the PR, and she's just, oh my gosh, a rock star for
Good.
sure. Needs to be, I mean, just brilliant. All right. So so I forced her to be on the team, and she's one of those individuals that's pushing me
Mhm.
in such a way that I needed somebody to do that. What do you say to those individuals who are just trying to do it themselves and try to hunker down? If I just work harder, I can make this happen.
Good question. Sometimes we keep adding and we keep adding, and more energy, more effort, more anxiety, more attention, and we kind of make it worse. Instead of digging ourselves a new path, we dig a bigger hole.
Hmm.
And so I like to encourage people to first and foremost stop what they're doing, stop digging the hole, and then offer a tool to help them figure out what's next. And the tool I love and I write about in my book is this thing called a pre-mortem.
Hmm.
Now, everybody knows what a postmortem is, right? It's that thing you do where you assign blame after something has failed, and then you never look at it again, right? You may write down what went wrong and put it on a binder physically or digitally, and it's done. You never look at it again. And when you start that new thing or you want to take that risk, you forget you did that postmortem, and then you are either recklessly optimistic or you're just anxious. And so I offer this tool that if you want to figure out, can I do this? Is it right? Should I get help? Can I do it on my own? Try this. Before you do anything in this world, go on that big interview, decide to join a team, ask yourself, how will I fail? Not how might I fail or could I fail or
Wow.
mighta coulda, like we do in North Carolina, right? You want to ask yourself, how will I fail? But give yourself a minute and write down all those different ways. If you want to interview for a job, but you're worried, I've got imposter syndrome, I sweat too much, can't tell a story, write it down. And when the timer goes up, before you go interview for that job, fix that stuff, or at least try to envision a fix. And if you do that, you give yourself a 30% greater chance of success. It's a
So I'm writing it down.
huge
So
competitive advantage.
that's exactly right. And so I'm writing it down because, like you said, do a pre-mortem. So I'm reading off my
Pre-mortem.
phone right now. Pre-mortem,
Yep.
and instead of post-mortem, write down how will I fail. And I like it because it gets rid of all the excuses right off the top. Right off the top, I love
And
that.
if your imagination is going to go wild about how things are going to go wrong and you can't do it, nobody's there to push me, test it out, write it all down. And when the timer goes up, stop being negative. Like, you're done. You got it. The hay's in the barn, as they say, right? So you've got it all there.
You sure you're from Chicago? Saying, "Hey, in the door."
I am. So the hay is in the barn. So, you've done all the work. Look at that list and then try to figure out, how am I going to fix it? And that act is just so elegant, John. It's the thing that fixes everything.
I really like that. And what you also said was, when I was looking here, the visualization, right? Before the race starts, the starter or the announcer will say, "Quiet for the start."
Yeah.
And what I talk about in resilience, right, is they have these 10 letters in the word resilience, which represent for me 10 hurdles in a hurdle race. But before we even begin the race, before I start running towards that first hurdle, that quiet for the start, embedded in the word resilience, is the word silence.
Oh, yeah. So
And I love how you said that, right? It's just rock solid, right on. And I was thinking about also what you said, the pre-mortem. When we're talking about how do you shorten that time, how do you get rid of those fears? One of the things we have for the military is post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mhm.
And so there's another doctor that came up with post-traumatic growth. So for example, real quick,
Yeah.
I'm doing more now with one leg than I thought I would ever do with two. So
Right.
that's the growth. Can we shorten that time of getting to the growth outside of the stress disorder that we have?
I love that. And I think the pre-mortem is a really great tool to do that. For
Mhm.
years, I was kind of mired in my own story around adversity and the things that went wrong and the challenges that I had. And I had this moment at an airport. I mean, so cliche, right? I'm like, what am I doing? Who am I? I'm eating Starburst for dinner and drinking Pepsi and reading Us Weekly, going from business meeting to business meeting. And I thought, no way, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot have another night in my life like this. Companies put themselves first all the time. They focus on their growth. They're always building a reservoir of money, of resources to make sure that they exist tomorrow. I was not doing that. I was taking from my reservoir constantly. So I really felt as if I needed to put myself first, especially because I was in a position of leadership. If I don't fix work for myself, I'm no good for anybody else.
Yeah.
Real great when someone comes in and says, you ought to do this, you ought to do that. But if they're not doing it for themselves, they're not authentic. It's not
Yep.
real. And that's the disconnect with a lot of these corporate programs that I used to oversee. I would tell somebody who was unhappy at work, you ought to exercise more. Meanwhile, I'm carrying around an extra 25 pounds on my frame, right? Like, who was I to even speak these words? And so in order to see it in my organization, I needed to be it. And that was really the transformative moment for me, dealing with my, emotional trauma and physical trauma from my childhood, dealing with all of the stuff in my life so that I could live a really great life and take all of that good stuff outside of work and bring it into the enterprise. That was my goal.
Well, I want to explore a little bit of that in a few moments here on, how you started getting burned out with HR and that, because I think a lot of times I'm keep writing down because you just keep on just blasting ideas at me, is when we're focused on our growth that we can have success for ourselves and a way that we can kind of manage. But I want to hear your thoughts on that. But first, for those that are watching right now, we are talking with Laurie, and oh my gosh, she's already dropping nuggets. I knew she would. So if you have a question, please drop it in the chat, but also put her out there, right? Somebody drop her name. So I can't type into all this stuff at the same time. So somebody drop her name into the chat. Make sure you are blasting around on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook, wherever you are watching the stream from, and just give one nugget that you have heard so far that Laurie has said, because it's important for all of us in this community that we're doing to elevate and accelerate each other in the community. So there's some people that are on right now. I said Patrice, of course. I bow. The jump is a jump.
Always
For that,
so wise.
right? Love it. And then Lynn Keir, she's down your way too. She's in North Carolina. And she says, excited for today's conversation. And she was talking about me too on that one that I think we had a conversation a little earlier. And of course, then Katie Clifford was, can't wait for the talk today. Okay. So we have all these folks that are just on. And so I wanted to ask you around this after we just check in, I'm thinking about what I needed to get done at home. Mm-hmm. So I was working for a company for 15 years, and then I left. It was a mutual leaving, departure. Sure. And I saw a lot of companies, or association, whatever that might be, they really began to do what you said. They protected the bottom line, the books, and they started letting people go. And I was like, wow, I mean, are you letting go your talent? Mm-hmm. I mean, the talent that you have that you need to keep there to help you think better. And when I saw that, it switched me really fast to say, I need to be bringing talent on so I can be freed up to really think about what I was doing. But I get it. You also said earlier that people want to be trying to, do their resumes. Now they're holding on to a job they may not want because of a health benefit or some other benefit that might be there that can get them through this period of time. So talk about your experience and then why that is so dangerous for somebody in their life.
Yeah, many of us have what we call happenstance careers. It's very rare that somebody is born into the world and they know, I'm going to be a marketing executive. Like, who knows that, right? Most of us just kind of fall into our careers. I'm going to fall into logistics. I'm going to fall into procurement. I'm going to fall into sales, right? And you may have an aptitude for it, and you may work at the intersection of purpose and passion, but you weren't necessarily born to do that. In fact, I personally believe your work is not your worth. Your worth is in relationships. Your worth is in your creativity. So your worth is in your education and what you do for the people around you, your acts of service. So you do this job and you do it with integrity because you're a self-leader, right? But many of us fall into this position where we're like, is that all there is? And it's like, yeah, dude, that's all there is, because that's all you are. You haven't done the work of being curious, of learning, of growing, of testing yourself, of developing different relationships that challenge you, of being of service. And so we fall into these routines, and then it just takes a little something like a negative performance review or a conflict with a boss to set us into this weird spiral where we're all focused internally. Nothing good happens from that, right? And so now in the age of COVID, we've got that kind of societal neuroses happening, along with real physical and emotional trauma happening. I mean, almost 600,000 of our US citizens have died from COVID. I mean, this is a real thing that's happening in our society. People are debating all kinds of issues around it, but this is real trauma, and it's very, very scary. So it does not surprise me that people are like, whoa, I'm going to take a minute and just hang out in this job I don't really like, but at least it takes care of me and my family. I don't hate that. As long as you're showing up with integrity and meeting the terms and conditions of your job and doing it well, shelter in place. But that's not a long and sustainable way of operating. You are not only shortchanging yourself, you are also shortchanging the people around you, because you could be doing glorious, amazing things that bring you joy, either inside of work or out, but really living this life of happiness, and you're not doing it. And this weird flat attitude that most people have is bringing down engagement at work, and it's bringing down engagement in our personal lives. So I'm really hoping that people don't live in 2021 and 2022 like they were living in 2019. Like, why did we survive a pandemic? Just to live like the past? No way. I'm not Tony Robbins, but I want people to look at their own lives and say, is that all there is? That can't be all there is. And start to make some braver and bolder decisions about both work and their personal lives. That's my goal. And that's the conversation I tried to prompt in the book. And you're right, John, people don't do this on their own. So I tried to give examples of just ordinary people. They're not business cases. There are no bullet points in my book or 2x2 quadrants, just human beings.
But I want that.
Yeah. There are stories of people who are just like, you know what? I'm going to try something a little different in my life, and let's see how it goes. And sometimes it pays off, and sometimes it's a disaster. That's the fun of my book.
Patrice thank you for sharing that. Patrice has a question she's going to ask. I'm going to get to in a second,
Sure.
But I want to go back just a second before I get to her question. And as I'm looking at this, is there something that triggered you in your life to get to this moment that I want something better? Is that all there is? I need something more. Is there something that triggered that for you?
Well, I think like most people, it's a series of triggers and a series of inflection points that get you pivoting one way and pivoting the other way. I grew up in a very chaotic environment where all the men in my family left. So we have 100% divorce rate, all single women raising children. My grandmother at one point was raising children on behalf of her daughters. Wow. And there were 8 of us in the home on the northwest side of Chicago. And, I looked around at my older cousins and I thought, I don't know, I want something a little different. And through decisions that I made, I somehow ended up being the first person in my family to attend university and graduate. And so that's not enough. Like, that's the American dream. That's what's supposed to happen. But I had this debt, and I thought, I don't want to be saddled with debt. My father filed bankruptcy. I didn't want that in my life. So I decided, well, all of my friends were out partying, right? I would take this job in corporate America, even though I didn't love it. And I did that work and tried to learn from it, paid down my debt like a very boring person while my friends in their 20s were having a good time. And, delayed having a family, which actually had later, longer implications on my family structure. But I did it, and I made these choices throughout the way that weren't sexy, that weren't glamorous, that were just very old school, John, because I didn't want that way of trauma, of drug addiction, of alcoholism, of violence that was in my family. And the one lesson I've learned from all of this is there's no substitute for hard work. It's delayed gratification. Now, I had certain privileges along the way, being, a white woman. That certainly gave me a leg up, so to speak, in certain environments. But, we all come to the table with our different flaws, with our different issues, with our different traumas. And I just tried to make the best of my circumstances and tried to be aware of the other stories around me that didn't pan out so well. And
Mm.
think the one thing, John, that maybe differentiated me from some others in my family was that I was just eternally grateful. I was grateful I could pay Sally Mae. I was grateful that I had that student loan debt. I was
Sally.
I was grateful that I had access to a credit card. And a lot of people bemoaned,
Right.
card debt, but I'm like, oh my God, I could drive a used 92 Honda Accord with 100,000 miles. I'm so glad I have this car, right? So
Right.
that attitude for me was the key differentiator. And when things were terrible at work, and when you work in corporate HR and you see the underbelly of an organization, it's not always great. I just said, I'm grateful to be here. What's the alternative? I knew what the alternative was in my family of origin. So it was I think these moments of gratitude that really kept me on the straight and narrow.
And your Honda Accord never got stolen. Most stolen car in the United States of America.
I'm not saying it didn't get broken into. I had that old club. Do you remember the club?
I remember the club.
And my windows were busted, and there was nothing to steal in it, but the club was still on there. So, good old Chicago.
Good old Southwest. You're on the north side of Chicago.
Northwest side. Yeah.
Northwest side. Yeah, I know it well. So Patrice has a question. So that's a great answer. I appreciate that. So Patrice has a question. Says, so good. How do you continue to challenge your mindset to overcome those fears? How do you continue to challenge your mindset to overcome the fears?
Yeah, I would love to hear your opinion on this. I think for me, I try to take every day as it comes. And there are real crazy things that come in this age of COVID, right? With a business as a speaker and an entrepreneur, like it would have been real easy for me to spend the last year hiding under a rock, right? I could have put this book on hold. But again, I just think about the alternative, and the alternative is so bleak and actually so boring that I'm like, forget it. I'm going to lean into whatever environment I have and just try. What's the worst that's going to happen? Because I have a series of good decisions in my life. I have a couple pennies in the bank. If it doesn't work out, I'll go do something else. Companies are still hiring out there. So even someone like me, I'm not afraid of hard work. So if all this doesn't pan out, John, you'll see me back scooping ice cream or doing something.
That's great. And I was thinking about her question because, this mindset I think is the critical piece. It's the thing that pushes us forward. It's the thing that we have to hold on to. And a lot of times we don't focus in on our own mindset. We borrow somebody else's mindset or society's mindset in order to get our own. So I like that White House, you said, the jump is a jump. That's what we talk about. The jump is a jump. It's only up to you. And so how I've done it is, and this is very kind of more athletics of what I found in athletics or in the military. I get know this about myself. I get very tunnel vision, and I start looking quickly at who's in my network that is supportive of my vision, my goals, my dreams. And anybody that is a naysayer who says, well, John, I'm not sure about that, you're cut right then. I just don't have time for that. I mean, I can get back to you later, but in this moment right now, I can't have a negative voice that's in my head. I need to isolate myself and make sure I'm focused until I get my bearings right so that I can help other individuals. And that process was, I just drove forward. And when all the speaking engagements went off the calendar in 2020, I still said I need to build systems. This is my second year out. And I brought people on the team that could build the systems so I could focus in on what I need to do incrementally, even though I had goose eggs for 3 months, right? It was that, an offering of service of what I thought I was built to do. So I love your answer and love to hear your thoughts on that. We got Lynn Kier has another question coming in, but love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, just real briefly, it reminds me of my friend Gino Wickman, who will be on my podcast in a couple of weeks. And he wrote The Entrepreneurial Leap, just a great author. And he is fond of saying, maybe don't ask for feedback. And so your comment about your network and your naysayers is real interesting, because when people are stressed, they'll often ask their friends or their colleagues, what do you think? And I think to myself, there are like 5 people in this world that I want giving me advice, and they all have multiple commas in their network. Like, I don't want to ask somebody like me what they think, because I'm an idiot and I don't know. So it's real important to be discerning about where you go for feedback and how you use your network, because sometimes your network is wrong.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's not like you said, the commas, we call them the two comma kids, right? The two comma kids you want to have, but also those that when you see somebody that's kind of walking around and everything's going crazy and they're in peace, I want to talk to that person,
Too. Yeah.
right? I want to talk to that individual. Everybody get away. I need to make my way to that individual. And then you can be somebody else's, five,
For
right?
sure.
From there.
For sure.
But you need your own, because if you got everybody pulling on you, you're going down. It's with the ship.
Absolutely.
So take every day as it come. Attitude is everything. Be grateful. Yes, and thank you, Laurie, says Lynn Keir. Wonderful. So if you're enjoying this conversation, whatever you've learned right now to this point, put her out, shout her out in the chat, wherever you're chatting in from. If it's LinkedIn, if it's on Facebook, or if it's on YouTube, wherever you're watching, please shout out Laurie. We're going to keep on with the questions. I want to go back to something you said. You said, okay, I know I had some advantages right there. And so how do you advise leadership now to handle the really hard challenges, right? We just saw another police shooting in Minnesota. My son last week was stopped in Texas after being followed for 10 miles by police, pulled over, told to get out by law enforcement, and for failure to signal. I mean, I don't know about you, but if police officers follow me for 10 minutes, 10 miles at 60 miles an hour, I'm probably gonna do everything right in the car. So they get him out and say, we're from a special police unit. We can search your car without your consent. So he's in a rental car because he just went to go see his daughter for the weekend.
Yeah.
Because mom and dad aren't together. Now I'm sitting in my staff meeting, agitated by this whole thing. And my peers are saying, John, it's really not that serious. Or you're overreacting, or worse, I'm just looked over and I'm sitting there stewing and I can't even focus.
Yeah.
How do we help our leaders in moments like this?
Well, John, that's a real good question that is not necessarily answered in the context of the business world. Up until just recently, businesses were reticent to get involved in politics. It was only in the past week or so that large businesses have even stood up and talked about all the legislation happening with voting rights in Georgia. Like they just, politics are the third rail. There were all of these corporations that weren't going to donate to people who supported the insurrection on January 6th. And now they're doing an about face on that, including my former employer, Pfizer. So I don't know, man. I mean, I don't have any magical answers, but here's what I do know. Corporations know racism is happening. They know sexism is happening. Ableism is happening because they have the data. And you speak so eloquently on my podcast about the Citibank report that actually talked about the economic impact of racism to our society. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Well, on ableism, yeah, sure. That Accenture comes out with a report, and I think it's Q4 of 2018, and they took a look at the data. I mean, spent a lot of money on this data, and if you have two like companies, Burger King, McDonald's, Coke, Pepsi, the one that has hired, retained, and promotes people with disabilities in the workplace, and the other one that doesn't, company A will outperform company B 2-to-1 to shareholder returns. And so now we have the data that shows that this company is actually outdistancing because they have taken advantage of 20% of the market share that most people overlook, which caused the New York State Comptroller, Tom DiNapoli, to say, I have $1 trillion in pension funds of the citizens of New York State. So I'm going to invest those trillions of dollars into these companies rather than the other ones because I'll make more return on my investment. And I think when we look at the numbers signs, now he's challenging all these CEOs. I think we got like 30 or 40 CEOs that are on board from major Fortune 500 companies, I think the Fortune 250 companies, that are making the commitment and pledge for people with disabilities to be hired, retained, and promoted in those organizations. And I think it works across the board. But when do we actually see it from the C-suite to actually turn the screw to turn the light bulb on?
So here's my thinking. 3M is a company I love. I've done some work with them based in the Minneapolis area. I have a huge presence. Target as well. Can you imagine if that CEO rounded up the mayor of Minneapolis, the mayor of, I can't remember the suburb now where the shooting happened, Brooklyn Center, I think it's called, rounded up these individuals and said, enough is enough. We know it's happening. You are terrorizing our workforce. Our workforce is not safe, and we are going to pull ourselves out of this community unless things change. I think that kind of conversation is the thing that has to happen moving forward. We have to show through the force of our communities at work that we're done. We're not putting up with this. And if this is the way you're going to treat people in this community, you're going to pull people over, you're going to terrorize them, we're not doing business here. The Business Roundtable has talked about the importance of coming together and using corporate social responsibility as a force for good.
Yeah.
And you don't do that through a white paper. You do that through these conversations where you're having realistic dialogue with these politicians, speaking in their language and threatening to pull money. That's what I believe.
And pull the money. I mean, that gets people thinking, right? Or charge or change the policy and charge the money, right? So
for sure. And by the way, I'm real sorry about your son. These stories, they got to end. It's 2021.
The only way he got out of it was because he recognized he had crossed over a county line, and he had actually played basketball for a junior college in that area, and he refereed their supervisor's son's basketball game. So when he dropped their name, they immediately stopped their search of the car and left him alone. So we know all the time, there happens to be a stop and then something's planted for a crime that's been committed. Right. And then all of a sudden, 30 years later, they get a sorry note. We're sorry for doing this. Here's your $1,500 and he's 30, right? He's 33. So he does 30 years in prison, and now he's 64. And I'm sorry, we were wrong. And life is gone. Right. So we see it happen all the time. There's some more questions that came in on this. Oh my gosh. I don't know if we can get to them all because we're almost at time right now. So let's see if this one. Laurie says, so thank you for your story. And Lynn says, how do you help your clients adopt the mindset of being grateful? So think about that one. And I'm going to try to do one more, try to wrap two in one. And then Katie says, betting on myself, the best thing I could ever do after the crazy year. But she also said there's somebody else that had a question I thought was in here. Maybe not.
Katie.
So we'll just do Lynn's question. I was looking, I couldn't really see it, and then we're gonna get on to our top. We're gonna do six questions for you. All right.
Just be quick. I mean, this is really all about modeling and providing examples of how gratitude and how mindfulness really pays off in your business operations. And I take the example of looking at someone's Outlook calendar, which is crazy, right? They don't feel like they have any control and it's nasty. And we start to break down the Outlook calendar and really figure out, how do you schedule time for the things you absolutely must do to put yourself first during the day, whether that's eating lunch or taking a breather break. How do we schedule a day that you can control and then leave plenty of blocks available for you to show up at peak performance? So we start there.
Okay. So I'm laughing because my rock star right there is saying, I need on your calendar, I need everything. I need how much time it takes you to drive from here to here.
Yeah.
Like what?
Do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. And so she's elevating me, right? So I need that for somebody to actually, do that for me. Robert Stillman's just got on. He says, sorry to hear about the sun's trouble. Yes, it happens. This is the second time, Robert, and it's happened to me at least 3 or 4 times. So, this is nothing new in our community. And it's hard to say that, but in the face of what's going on right now, I thought it'd be relevant just to kind of bring that up.
Absolutely.
So, and these are real life experiences. It's nothing new, but we have to, advocacy is actually making some change to it. Like Laurie was talking about, let's attack resources for and that kind of gets people's attention. All right. So we got the JR's Rapid 6. All right. Flash fire round. Are you ready? We're going to bring you in nice and tight on the camera. Boom. Here we go. No, it's not. Yeah. Great. Because you're about to walk up some steps in the soldier field pretty soon. All right, here we go. Who is the last person you gave a high five to? Because today is high five day.
Well, it must have been pre-COVID, and it might have been my little nephew, Lucas.
Oh, Lucas. All right. I can't believe they just did that. What is that?
Spit while running. I hate that.
Oh my gosh. Can't do it in Singapore. That's for sure. That's spit while running. Okay. I can't believe they just did that. What is that?
Gave me an extra scoop of ice cream.
Oh, I love it. What flavor?
I mean, I like chocolate. I like chocolate mint. I like
chocolate chip mint.
Yeah.
All right, great. Yeah, we could be friends now.
That's right.
Your most memorable quote.
Well, my father-in-law once said that a job worth doing is a job worth doing well, and that has stuck with me.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm going to visit here when we open back up.
I'm going to the Maldives.
Maldives. Oh my gosh. I may just join you.
Me.
Who do you know? This is the great one. Who do you know that you would recommend for this live show?
Oh my goodness. I know so many great people. I would recommend my friend Jennifer McClure because she taught me that everybody good gets fired once. I
Well,
believe
I must be great because I
she's fun. She's wise. Jennifer McClure.
I've got fired so many times. Not even funny. Thank you for playing that. So you got 5 for me. You can do that. You can do 5.
I have 3 for you.
Okay, 3 for me. Okay.
So let's do this. Favorite animal?
Eagle.
Favorite smell?
Deep dish pizza.
Oh, yes. Well, and this is related. Favorite taste?
Yeah, that's sausage, pepperoni, the old Geno's East, with the sauce coming down my chin as I took my bite in that meat pie.
Oh, you're making me so hungry. I love it. I love it. Those are my 3 for you. Rapid fire.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Robert says, I'm immortal then. I'm not sure what do you mean, man? I'm not sure what that means.
Sure you are.
Patrice says, Maldives. Yes, she's going. No, Patrice, look, we're going someplace else. We got as he says, yes, 100%. Of course. We had a great time today. We had fun. Okay. So the last kind of question I have is, what is the greatest fear people have in your industry that you've seen? And what are 1 to 3 ways to help them commit to the jump past it, that fear?
I think people in the world of human resources are afraid of being called out as too soft on workers' issues. Okay. But I also believe that the pyramid needs to flip. It used to be that consumers were up on top and then the board and executive leaders and then the workers. I actually think you put employees at the top of the pyramid and it makes your customers happy because good EX, employee experience, informs good customer experiences. So I think one way to do this is to just embrace that fear. What if you were too employee-centric? What if you took the side of employees? How could that benefit your organization? Start to be counterintuitive, zig and zag a little bit, and really embrace that fear and test it out. Maybe use the pre-mortem and see what happens. That would be my advice.
I
when
love
was
that.
the last time some HR person was too employee focused? That fear is never realized.
I'm laughing because yesterday, April the 14th, my wife, Alice, turned 5 years old with Southwest Airlines.
Wow.
And talk about being employee focused. I mean, customer focused, employee focused. And then for that organization is a cult. I mean, they teach their people, they don't teach their people, they teach the customer how to work with them.
That's right. That's right.
I saw them turn a plane when she first started working with them. I just kind of flew around just because I got husband rights, right? I call myself the love hub because I'm LUV and hub. I get to go to all the hubs as the husband around. I'll fly with us to overnights. But what I found is that during the time I was at the gate area, everybody had the same thought process.
Yeah.
I would try to get on a flight, like a standby, and I was on some other airlines as well. And I knew that if I couldn't get on the plane, I was going to have to wait for the next plane, and I'll just go sit someplace, go to read a book, no problem. I actually walked away from the gate, the lectern, the podium, and I get my name called over the loudspeaker. And they say, well, John Register, please come back to gate so-and-so. And I'll go back and said, hey, we found another flight to go through here that might get you into your destination about the same period of time. Who does that for a standby passenger that just works for the company? The wife works for the company.
People who care, that's who do that, right? People who love their work and are at that intersection of purpose, passion, and meaning, they're going to do it. And they're generally happier outside of work as well.
Oh my gosh. So my mouth's open.
Yeah.
And I was like, you just did what? And it didn't happen one time. It happened like a couple times. I was like, wow, this is a cultural thing, right? So I'm just kind of I'm blown away by that. So
That's
we
it.
got a couple more. Diana Parker says, Geno's East, yes, absolutely 100%.
Although
You're
I
the,
say Lou Malnati's, I'll also say I love some
yes,
Malnati's. In fact, this weekend I'm going to have some. So yeah,
but Geno's changed their recipe.
I heard that. I haven't had it in a long time. Yeah,
They changed the recipe.
too bad.
Good X Informs, good CX. Great statement, Laurie, from Lynn. And let's see. That's why I got moved on from HR. As you guys say, my one firing because I put the employees first. That's terrible. It's horrible.
It's terrible.
And then Robert said, from the he said, I'm immortal. Then that's because fired. Right? He says I'm immortal.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm immortal. That's right. Well, I am so thankful for you being on today. What a gift you have been for this audience and for me especially. I wish you so well on your endeavors as you get ready to go back to Chicago and climb the stairs, as we called it, the John Hancock, and we still call it the Sears Tower.
We do.
We just can't get it out of our heads.
Kick some butt this weekend. That's the point.
So in closing, last closing thoughts, tell us a little bit about your book, where we go find it, how we contact with you, and then we'll wrap the show.
Sure. Anybody can go to punkrochr.com and fall into the ecosystem of the book, the blog, the podcast. And the book, again, is called Betting on You, How to Put Yourself First and Finally Take Control of Your Career. You can get it anywhere books are sold. So I recommend going to your independent bookstore, maybe a Black-owned bookstore, a brown-owned bookstore in an LGBTQ plus community. Go buy it there. It's available. Jeff Bezos has plenty of money. So if you can, go support someone in your local community and make a purchase there.
I love that. And you're on tour right now with the book too, aren't you?
I am. And with COVID, it's been a tour from my home office.
Right. Yeah. It's a tour.
I'm on tour. I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. And the book is available internationally on Kindle, but we'll have a UK and Australia release later this year. So I'm excited about that.
Wonderful. So go to Laurie's website and you will see the book tour lined up there. And if she's coming to your town,
I love it.
virtually, come on.
Be with me in some random city that you don't live in. That's especially fun.
Love that. That's cool. I'm not from here, but please sign my book.
That's right.
Here we go for digitally signed. All right, we're going to wrap the show. Thank you so much for being on. I'm just so honored, so thrilled that you would give us a portion of your time. So thank you.
See you soon. I appreciate you. Thanks.
All right. Say goodbye to Laurie, everybody. She's been wonderful, great, awesome, rock star, punk rock HR, baby. So follow that show, follow that podcast. Remember her book, Betting on You, How to Put Yourself First and Finally Take Control of Your Career. She's on book tour right now. Buy that book. As she said, you don't have to go to the big bookstores. Find somebody in your own local community to actually do that. Remember, this month is Amputee Limb Loss Awareness Month. We're pushing out content on this all the time. Bespoke Bodies. I wrote the foreword for it. I put that on LinkedIn. Go back on my timeline and you'll see the foreword that I wrote for this amazing book, just beautifully done. I think each copy is about $65 because all colored picture, beautifully done book. And Instagram Live each night about 7 p.m. Mountain Time. I am on doing 100 Days of Inspiration. I think it's going to be a little bit later on this evening because I'm probably on the road trying to get up to Denver for a presentation I have tomorrow. Check out the newscast on KOAA 5, Colorado Springs. We were on last night. Great segment by reporter Rob Quirk. So that's on my timeline as well. So you can get a chance to look at that. Go on and click on it. You're going to, it was an amazing interview. So like about 3 minutes he did, just really wrapped. I thought he did a very great job on the edits. Check out past shows that we have tagged and buy my book on Kindle, 10 Power Stories to impact any leader. Journal your way to leadership success. We're going to have it in paperback. I know I keep saying that, but I just got to get the ISBN number and get it back over to the people that are actually doing it. And then join the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/amputate fear. And we want to talk to you over there. So remember my quote by Anais Nim, who says, she says, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. Wow. When truth outweighs fear, we commit to a courageous life. That's mine. But the one I love most is that Anais Nim one. It's just a beautiful, beautiful one. Patrice has just put in the chat box there a link to this Tragedy to Triumph, an Olympic story. So please click on that link right there and it'll take you right to the story. And remember that you are the inspirations. Inspirations lead on to motivation. Motivation in turn causes actions. Actions lead us to transformational results. And those results, they re-inspire us or allow someone else that's watching the process to catch the vision. We say, go forth, inspire your world. We'll see you back here next week on another edition of Hurdlers of Adversity, conversations with inspirers and maximizers of pivotal moments. Have a great day, everybody. Fantastic weekend. And we will chat with you next week. All right. Bye for now.